taking back the city, I'm taking back what's mine. We surrounded every building and we'll set it all on fire. Rising from the ashes, I was a king without a crown. Now I make these walls come tumbling down. I'll make them.
Didn't have the budget for a better intro. After the dissolution of Team Centuries, it would be expected that nothing would happen afterwards. However, even with Team Centuries' death, TUC was only declining. Quite a lot has happened, although much less than I thought at first. Most of it was in Minecraft and LC5, which explains that the intro was an LC5 one, even though not everything in this video is going to be about it. This is a continuation of the part 2 video on the previous TUC documentary. If you haven't watched the first part, go watch it to get the full context. I'm going to try and keep everything covered in this video loosely TUC related, or rather everything that the former TUC members participated in or what TUC affected even after its fall. That is TUC's legacy. I could cover every single thing I personally done during the past year, but I won't. I will cover only events with 2 or more members involved, so I won't go over how I played an insane amount of Persona, Civilization, or Touhou. Team Centuries officially disbanded on the 3rd of October 2022. It did not stand for centuries, but we could say it lasted for Minecraft centuries. From April 2019 to October 2022, it managed to last 90,648 Minecraft days, which is 2.48 centuries. Anyways, Team Centuries had its last talk on the 14th of September. We were mostly chatting about how Ben was gradually leaving with schoolwork as his justification and how we definitely should not meet up in real life until Henry would be 69 years old. Playing the mod pack Chroma Technologies 2 was a very interesting event. It was the only one to start before Team Centuries died and stretched on even after TUC's dissolution. Mitamai proposed to play Chroma Tech as a pastime since Henry and Forever wanted to play Minecraft and Team Centuries was gradually dissolving. This was ignoring the fact that Ben and especially Forever hated modded Minecraft. Forever would never join the Chroma Tech server. Later, Teacup, Taurus and Raphael joined. Mitamai decided to establish himself in a magical forest, in a totally naturally generated structure with several elemental sources. There was a gigantic dragon skull, but now it's gone, along with the tombs of 5 slain dragons. The power generation system was mostly made of wind turbines and solar panels. For the quest to get simple iron seeds, the progression of the pack made us finish the entirety of Botania and Blood Magic. At the top of the tower, there's mostly decoration with a dragon egg trophy, then a hidden refined storage system and a wind element source, my work area, the lobby, which was also another work area, then the elemental craft floor with pipes connected everywhere. The basement is a large section divided between the tech mods, with power being especially annoying and an early power generation with lava. Some machines are connected and there's the plastic machinery. There was a whole mystical agriculture farm set up in a corner, which also produced most of the wood and food through fruit trees in bonsai pots. The locked section is solely farming redstone for the Tome of Alchemy. Plenty of Ars Nouveau spells were tinkered in the magical area, such as summons, lightning strikes, insta-death, buffs, intense firepower, and kamikaze decoys with the power of the sun. Yes, all of those were used to annoy everyone else in PvP. There was also a fish living in the pond, but he died. Henry's base was settled in a village until Mitamai burned it down for fun. This base is the most technologically advanced with create machinery. He pretty much cleared every tech mod in existence with all sorts of machinery. He was used to playing create above and beyond in peaceful mode, so his base was wall-less. He also possessed a mining machine. His base was also the deadliest, with immersive engineering wires everywhere that would fry you on the spot. Teacup's base was settled in an underwater structure near spawn we so happened to find. After clearing the hostels, it made for a nice cozy place, although much more undeveloped than the two previous bases. Raphael's base was settled right above Teacup's in an artificial slime island. There is literally nothing here. Taurus, or Valdres, base is an acacia mansion near a magical forest, which is not the same as Mitamai's. The mansion is mostly empty and it seems Endermen are living rent-free in this place. They've also wrecked the basement. Nearby, a mob tower was built. Mitamai had tamed a giant lightning dragon, which is now gigantic. Therefore, some dragon's nest was taken over and turned into Wyvern's nest. The nest is a bit unsettling as the dragon named Wyvern is living on top of dragon skulls. Teacup also tamed a dragon and so, Paratonera's nest is just over the horizon. Chroma Technologies 2 was a fine mod pack. It resembled what I wanted to make later into a mod pack and overall felt grindy but in a good way. To get one item, you would have to go through several entire mods due to locking some mods behind quests. The actual quests themselves felt lackluster, and we never really even looked at them. There was no fancy presentation, interesting quests, and they were mostly just stacking the progression of each mod on top of each other. Speaking of fancy presentations, I discovered Elysia Silly's work in progress mod packs which looked amazing, especially in the quest department. Elysia had also added some lore to her mod pack, which added a touch of uniqueness. The only proper mod pack with lore and good quests that I had discovered was Banished, a very old one. Those would later inspire me for an upcoming mod pack. In October, Ben and Alex left TUC. Earlier in the year, we played a custom-made Rusted Warfare campaign in Mindustry. We had gotten to map 6, but we never actually even played the 6th mission. TUC died before we could have yet another rerun of playing Mindustry together. So, Mitamai and Teacup decided to clear map 6. The map is extremely big, with several sections focused on either resource collection, manufacturing, or defense. We suicide bombed some flying units into the enemy outpost's oil supply and burned the entire outpost to the ground to secure beryllium and tungsten to start making Arakir units. We cleared the literal trenches and Mitamai built a gigantic wall, as usual. We would not be able to beat the map before something else picked our interest and we moved on to something else. Mitamai proposed to play OpenTTD. Henry had refused and Teacup reluctantly agreed to play. On a gigantic Earth map, the companies of the Chinese East India Company and Bones UK, because Teacup listened to Bones UK in that time, competed for a global monopoly of the world's transports. With the massive population of India and China, as well as experience, the Chinese East India Company completely dominated. A second game between the Grande Transoceanico Empresa Company and Kosai PL Company was planned but never really happened. Then, Teacup and Mitamai got to play Minecraft Dungeons. Henry and Forever were also invited but refused on financial grounds. Minecraft Dungeons was a fine game. I would describe it as made to look very satisfying and also satisfying to play but lacked more in the content department. The main story ended very quickly and then it was on the grind. There are DLC islands and other dimensions but they've never felt the same as the main story and mostly felt like grind for some reason. They were interesting, sure, but existed in their own little bubbles. Mitamai was obsessed with a lightning diamond pickaxe and made getting it, and keeping it throughout the entire game, a priority. The only other melee company that got some attention was the Obsidian Claymore with ridiculous stats. To make up for the fact that he was stuck with a low level, not really special and with an arguably terribly enchanted weapon, Mitamai came up with a new strategy, using electric rolls. They see me rolling. They're dead. Later combined with an armor which grants a small invulnerability upon rolling and 3 feathers, constantly rolling 24/7 made for a ridiculous strategy. The alternative was 3 iron golems at once. Teacup, on the other hand, delved into the dark arts of soul magic, mostly maining the beacon, which demanded souls in exchange for overwhelming firepower. Forever was upset with the dissolution of Team Centuries, and more so with the fact that its former members were drifting further apart with no sign of coming back. Team Centuries has had months of inactivity at a time, but this time was simply different, and worse. So, he proposed to test the new Minecraft Camel added in 1.20 with a desert-only server. Henry was totally uninterested while Mightamai agreed to join in as long as Henry also joined in, which meant no server. Mightamai had also quickly thrown together a small lore story to explain the server. I guess that will need to be added to Mightamai's narrative now. The Russian spy in TUC, totally not one of Pre-Revers alt accounts, came up with a report on how TUC was dying, which was confirmed shamelessly by Mightamai. Later on, a year later, the Russian spy would leave TUC. Korean leaves TUC in December. Revere was a passion project first started in TUC. After playing various mod packs, Mightamai decided to make his own for March break to play with TUC. The first Revere was frankly terrible but overall still a very fun experience. After that, Mightamai's plans, with the help of Teacup, or more accurately trying to get Teacup's help but him doing frankly nothing, grew more ambitious. Revere, Reverse Collapse was going to be a big mod pack. A good mod pack. A mod pack with lore. After several months of figuring out the tech tree and how everything would work, during Christmas break, Mightamai would start actually working on Revere. Playing Reverse Collapse would be the event in post-TUC history to get the most people playing: Mightamai, Teacup, Henry, Meruem, Taurus, and Karma. Karma was a bit special. The release was delayed a bit because no one knew how to do anything. Instead of CurseForge, because we couldn't wait for a week, Mightamai decided to upload the pack on Technic, just like the first Revere. Firstly, I'll explain the mod pack a little. In the first Revere mod pack, things had gone well until Mightamai and Teacup explored other dimensions in their secret lab, triggering several foreign deities to invade. After a fierce battle in the skies, the inhabitants of Revere, mostly wearing draconic armor, were defeated and left with broken, extremely battered armor. Elisa, the deity of trust, and also the earth, offers to help the player with several quests. However, it seems like the progression of technology and magic isn't the same as last time. Now, you needed to go to the depths of the earth and to space to get quantum armor and do all sorts of dark magic to even obtain a philosopher's stone and gem armor to finally craft draconic armor again. After completing Elisa's gifts, she awards the player with Elisa's gifts, which can be spent in a shop for some goodies instead of the annoying random rewards of previous mod packs. You could also take on some quests of the foreign deities to obtain some rewards and eventually, betray them and defeat them in a boss battle. The culmination of all of this journey took you to Zeta, the former god of Revere that was overthrown by the foreign deities and replaced by Alpha, warning you to beware of Yuma. Obviously, the player ignores this and fights Yuma, an extremely hard boss fight even to people in chaotic draconic armor and requiring brick swords dealing 12,000 damage per hit but with only 1 durability. Elisa would give you her pocket Elisa to aid you in this duel, granting you some buffs. Anyways, after leaving the spawn, everyone set off in their own direction, ignoring the idea of making a base together. We had waypoints, so we could always travel to each other very easily. Mightamai did the usual early flying airship to explore and loot battle towers, while Meruem aimed for what had yet to be nerfed. He managed to obtain dragon armor, which is a little bit overpowered and allows flight, which was an issue since flight was specifically locked until the mid-game. This was later nerfed. Since the capsules mod was enabled, everyone started with a nice deployable house. Mightamai would settle a sky base with several capsules such as farms and little houses. Many essence berry bushes and or bushes would decorate the base and be useful as well. Later, a refined storage system was built powered by some generators below. To rush Reverse core armors, which were locked behind a gacha system needing some alliages of the horizon which required alchemical coal, and an early way to get it in this mod pack was through actually additions machines. No one wanted to make a smeltery, so Mightamai was forced to make one. A quarry was established further away, powered by a wood farm, in a defiled biome to generate both vanilla minerals and defiled minerals for the magic progression. Henry's base was established on a small island, with a giant quarry mining the ocean and machines scattered everywhere, as usual. Henry powered his quarry with oil instead, which proved to be more efficient. Meruem, the most advanced player by far, somehow, had established himself on a small island. I believe he would also move somewhere else, but I don't remember. Meru had decided to ride solo, and he somehow beat the rest of his combined in terms of quest progression. Teacup settled in the strangest area possible, Dimensional Doors Limbo. He had the most confusing base ever. He would also exploit an oversight to get an energy condenser and power flower earlier than what progression normally allowed. Karma's fate was sad. He did not do great. He was homeless, struggled against every mob and kept dying. We kept having to bail him out of several dungeons, and we even sometimes died in the process. Mitamai would attempt to try to get Henry and Teacup to play noobs in combat. Henry refused. Teacup played once and never again. Undeterred, he played alone anyways and grinded his alt up to standard but could not beat the maps requiring more than 2 players. Reverse Collapse had been a success, even if a troubled one, and so another, harder version was made, Continuum Turbulence. This one was named after a GFL event. Elisa had decided to fuck over the player this time and mangled the dimensions so hard, tech progression was modified yet again and the world turned into a mess. So I had gotten the idea for this mod pack after looking at a mod which made the world into chunk by chunks areas divided by the void. This pack was frankly hell due to the up difficulty, but still fun with this challenge which allowed for a different way of mining. We got absolutely destroyed by every kind of mob due to some scaling health issues, and so we started an arms race. Teacup made an overpowered infinite durability shuriken and Mitamai copied him but did it better by adding some effects like anti-undead and lifesteal. Players would start with special cheap scaffold cubes for easier travel. Meruem and Karma did not join again. Henry would join for only a brief moment, so most of the server was left to Mitamai and Teacup. Our combined base, this time, was a mix of having actual houses and keeping every machine outside. These were capsule houses though. Mitamai had built a nice tower which accidentally required parkour to climb. The tower was mostly useless except for housing the enchanter. We had a mild period of constantly ambushing each other with ghost blocks and gaps in bridges. Henry's house was sad. Mitamai's house hid a secret base where a machine turned infinite snow into infinite ice to craft frozen ice armor and tools, an extremely powerful set with potion full set effects but with low durability. The server did not last long since it was effectively a harder Revere and was plagued with the same issues. Ben passed by while we were playing Continuum Turbulence and criticized us for playing video games, claiming that we should work out instead. This confirmed that he had converted to becoming a gym rat, and that he would not come back. He would also cut contact with me against my last wishes to stay in touch until I could send him the first TUC video. For whatever reason, Henry and Lolk wanted to play Muck and spammed Mitamai to join them. So, we played Muck for a night again, consisting mostly of relearning the game and playing on the same map as we once did years ago. I spoke about Elysia earlier. For all of this time since September, I was mostly lurking in Elysia's server, admiring her progress from making a mod pack, to abandoning that and making a texture pack instead, to abandoning that and making a mod. I was a pretty big fan of Elysia, even naming one of my characters in one of my books after her. Starset was an ambitious mod planned by Elysia which in theory could even rival the likes of Create. She even managed to grab Zesty Blaze, an actual mod developer. I actually started to interact with Elysia and we got along very well. Me and Teacup even managed to somewhat join the mod team. Elysia needed a writer for the lore of the mod. She had one but they quit. We joked that Elysia fired that writer, and I got in as the new writer. We tinkered around ideas for the mod and even started development on a Discord bot for the server around a game of Flesh. However, we came to some disagreements and misunderstanding which made Elysia overreact in her capacity as a trans person and owner of the project. She promptly kicked us out. We still aren't sure today whether she did this out of newfound hatred for us, out of a fear for keeping power, or over an impulse, but nevertheless, Elysia became a new rival instead of ally in the modding game. She would later completely rage quit out of the modded Minecraft community after encountering a similar conflict with fellow modders. In the aftermath of this event, I'm unsure if Starset is still in development as it has not received a commit in several months. It was an ambitious mod and Elysia fired 2 writers in a row and could not find a third one as far as I remember. She would still explore modding, texture packing with her Better Slabs texture pack, and started a thermal expansion with some members of her server, but would still remain mostly inactive as far as I've known. Now, we're getting into arguably the main part of this video, LC5. The intro was mostly about this. There were previously 4 separate LC servers, although only 2 were actually really played. This time, this server would be planned to last forever. We would not make a new world whenever a new update dropped, we would keep on playing in this world. By far, this server would rivalize the others in terms of achievements and builds. We started with a few players, Mitamai, Teacup, Henry, Forever and Raphael. Meruem and Rip were invited but declined. Karma would also try to join but his Wi-Fi made sure he couldn't. We spawned in a village, which we would colonize easily. A main spawn house was made and a gigantic railway station would connect the rest of the server to spawn. More on that later. We decided to split up into some nations. Teacup would go to the desert to start his industry, the rest would join Mitamai's Eternal Kingdom, which was actually a sultanate without a monarch, in a hill which served as nice natural protection. After making Forever spawn-proof the entire place, it became the safest place in the entire server. It was also the only nation with actual builds, all made by Mitamai. The community house served as a base of operation, with the first chest room. A waterfall was one of the most interesting natural landmarks, and so we built around it. The Trans-Siberian Railway Company was formed to obsessively connect every nation of the server with railroads. A nether highway was still more efficient, and the TSRC would also take over its infrastructure. The vast railways showed the might and absurd determination of the Eternal Kingdom. A villager cage was also established to supply the soon-to-be-built village with NPCs. We chose a certain spot for a mine. Later, Teacup would come in and establish an extraterrestrial bounties guild in a corner, which served no purpose. A stable was built with a cherry field. The crop fields were mostly decorative by this point. A granary was also built to house a villager selling golden carrots, and a large chest room upstairs with a deck to fly out of with an elytra. A small smeltery shack was constructed hiding a secret basement. Teacup's Bounties office prompted a response from the Eternal Kingdom, and a royal questing guild would be built with its own quirks in architectural design. It would also serve no purpose as the quest arc never came. A fishing hut was built adjacent to the waterfall, and a gigantic Age of Empires 2 castle was also built to overlook the railway line and the surrounding environments. Teacup Space, the periphery, started humble and turned into a monster. A giant quarry and massive walls were later built. It started as a simple lawn base with no walls and an amalgamation of industry. The periphery would fund a lot of the TSRC's railway lines. This nation is the most industrious of all, although not the richest, since every time a new farm is made, it crashes that resources market, rendering it worthless. For most of LC5, the Eternal Kingdom would be the richest before being overtaken by the Frozen Kingdom. The periphery also built a massive raid farm near spawn. This entire country is held up by one player, Teacup. He just follows YouTube tutorials on how to build everything, really. Henry, although officially a part of the Eternal Kingdom, had 2 other bases. His first one was established before the Eternal Kingdom was founded, and it is now known as Henry's Chalet, or Seaside Vacation House. It would later be burnt down by Forever and was connected with the TSRC railway line. Mitamai would partially rebuild the house, but it was mostly unused. Henry also made a secret base, which wasn't much secret since the Nether portal was literally 2 seconds away from the Eternal Kingdom's portal. It was built in a desert island and served as a minor location where Henry would be killed once by Forever. The Eternal Kingdom also owned a stronghold nearby, connected with a TSRC railway line. The stronghold has an end portal which is most of the server's main gateway to the efficient Enderman farm. Speaking of those railway lines, they are long. Later on, Shmaal would join the server and establish his frozen kingdom in an ice spike biome. The railway company would make a railway line before even the first tower was finished construction. The base features a nice ice theme and cobblestone materials with the main tower and other annex buildings. Steve was a polar bear living in the frozen kingdom but would die for whatever reason. The spawn was the first inhabited area and would later be formed into the Spawn Authority, a formerly neutral area. Henry would make a small base before joining up with the Eternal Kingdom in the mountains while Teacup founded the Periphery. During the establishment of the Eternal Kingdom, sadly, slave labor was used. Forever enslaved Raphael to do all sorts of tasks. He would die several times, and 3 separate chests with his stuff are still found throughout the server to this day. Stupidly, he never picked up the contents of the chests and dragged down the kingdom's finances by making a new set of armor and tools every time. Later, slavery would be abolished and Raphael was promised a fief outside of the kingdom's borders. Forever had a plan to make some barracks in a corner of the Eternal Kingdom, but the plans never amounted to anything. There was also a certain hacking controversy concerning Forever since he kept hacking. Mitamai and Teacup also hacked and admin abused during previous servers, but now mostly tried to play the game fairly. However, Forever still hacked and used unfair advantages against other players. Teacup banished him to the void as a punishment, killing him. This admin abuse severely angered him and a lot of conflict would emerge. Mitamai later planned a certain arc to keep Forever happy by allowing him to hack to a lesser extent, as magic. But that's a story for a later time in the video since it chronologically happened later. Skillload and Henry were playing some mod packs together. Mitamai proposed to play Age of Civilizations 2, also known as Age of History 2, in multiplayer to Henry, Teacup, and Skillload. Henry and Teacup declined, but Skillload was interested. AOC 2 is a simple yet complicated strategy game, and with some imagination, an extremely fun game. I played for thousands of hours, and this is confidently my 3rd most played game behind Roblox and Minecraft. Multiplayer is technically not available in the game, but a hot seat mode is in the game, and we use TeamViewer to play multiplayer. We would have a fun campaign playing as Italian states until it eventually died down. Nani leaves TUC in June. In June, after being delayed for 2 months, the first TUC documentary finally released. It never occurred to me that I would have to cover this, but I guess I have to now. The reactions ranged from very positive from former Team Centuries member to non-existent for some TUC members. Karma has no enemies. Are you sure about that? I am 69% sure. Your internet is your enemy. Correction, I have no organic enemies. Ray, I have no white enemies. You're pushing it a bit there, mate. LMAO. Skillload, Mitamai, and Henry played Reverse Collapse again. Skillload and Henry had played a bunch of mod packs together, and Mitamai wanted in, proposing to finish Reverse Collapse. The server sadly lasted only 1 day and no one would return. We had first settled on a small island. The houses would obviously be burnt down again in dispute. Mostly Henry had built a giant quarry yet again, powered by oil this time. Mitamai's workshop was on a mountain, which would later be damaged by a small conflict between Mitamai and Henry. The two would keep trapping and killing each other. Mitamai had built somewhat of a castle above this with the materials obtained from a capsule. It was meant to start magic, but the server would die before that. For the third time, Decaying Winter would be taken down by Roblox. One of the best Roblox games would be taken down yet again, but it came back up. Mitamai and Teacup decided to play it again, rushing to compete on who would find a Sickler first to re-unlock the Apostle class. This was fairly uneventful, but we did tinker with the game, using hacking as a way to mod it and add special starter kits. The Gramanoditra arc would start on LC5. By this point, most of the Eternal Kingdom had been built. However, the Frozen Kingdom had become the richest on the server by far. They were one of two nations, like the Eternal Kingdom, to have a beacon. Forever would briefly raid the Frozen Kingdom, pillaging its emerald beacon, chests, and destroying its library. Outraged, the Frozen Kingdom's main quest was to retrieve its beacon. Forever was the most competently skilled PvP player of LC5 by this point. Henry could equal him, but his secret base was found and a severely outgeared Henry would be killed by Forever in his own home. Mitamai came up with a plan to contain Forever's power. We might have summoned Forever's player entity without him logging on and crucifying it using commands in this place, but Forever would absolutely never give up his hacking powers, even with Teacup putting an anti-cheat in place. This disabled most hacks but not all of them. So, Mitamai would allow Forever to use certain of his hacks such as flight. The Grimoire of the Gramanoditra would grant Forever the ability to fly and see beyond what mortals reach. The Temple of Ouroboros also seemingly appeared out of nowhere. This temple would be the scene for a future ambush that would go wasted. So, Mitamai sent Forever to gather materials while Mitamai would gather Shmaal and Henry to ambush Forever during the ritual. The Frozen Kingdom's beacon was one of the required ingredients to justify the whole thing. However, the ritual never happened. It all kinda just died down before we could actually commit to the event. The entire arc planning was wasted. Later, Mitamai would restore the Frozen Kingdom's beacon to the Frozen Kingdom. Enderdarks left TUC in July. If you've been wondering what Forever was up to during all of this time, he'd been reading a lot of manhwas, mangas, and watching anime. Mitamai and Teacup had also done the same. It seems like former TUC members would go down three routes: intense gaming, the way of the weeb, and becoming gymrods. Speaking of gymrod, Ben had managed to convert some of his friends to being a gymrod too. Or he was just surrounded by gymrod friends, I don't know. Forever found out he was playing Fortnite, even though he formally denounced gaming, which angered everyone. KNT released Girls Frontline Shootout on the 22nd of July 2023. It's a GFL fan game where instead of commanding T-dolls, you instead play as M4A1 and shoot incoming Sangbus hostiles with purchasable upgrades and abilities. The game is short and able to be completed in a matter of hours, so there normally shouldn't be much of it, but I managed to get in contact with the creator, KNT. I did report bugs and chatted with Kian about the game. At some point I plan to either modify the game and continue the development of the game with Teacup, since Kian would not continue development personally. I did plan a lot but would not make anything of it. Earlier, I had published Reverse Collapse to the public and found relative success. It's better than average with around 1,800 downloads at the time of recording this. Now, this number doesn't seem impressive compared to the gigantic successful mod packs with several millions or even the average ones with several thousands, but at least it's better than the vast majority of mod packs struggling to pass 100 downloads. Anyways, I managed to get a Bisect hosting sponsorship, so I guess this video is sponsored by Bisect now. Not really, but I was able to get a free server out of it and a promo code no will use. I mean, does anyone even use those? There's like one on every mod page. I got an improved logo out of it though, but even now I still wonder if the old one would be better. Aesthetically speaking, the new one should be superior, but just like TUC's logo, the old one has a certain charm to it besides being technically terrible. Contact, A888. It's a great game. Mitamai pitched the game to Dungeon Crew, but Meruem would not play a lowly Roblox game, even if it's a game worthy of being its own game. So instead, Mitamai, Karma, Henry and later TUC became mercenaries for the AOF. Contact, A888 is a co-op shooter wave survival where the players need to survive while activating anchors, which raises the time counter. When the counter hits 0, or everyone dies, the game is lost. There are several classes, abilities, weapons, and equipment to choose from. At first, things weren't great. This is an Archeximus game and so the difficulty is extreme at the start. Henry was the only one who managed to do something, reaching level 30 and getting cool upgrades, while Karma basically couldn't level up and Mitamai was slowly leveling up. Henry chose the default gun-oriented assault class while we would dabble into the specialist and medic classes until Mitamai chose the technician. The technician has a turret. Upgrading the turret, the technician would pretty much invalidate all other classes. This turret could be upgraded to get crippling rounds or become a minigun, 360 degrees battlefield range or shielding surrounding allies, fire missiles, or enable the deployment of a second turret. Overpowered. Turrets created safe zones in an extremely hostile environment as well as becoming money printers. It was still good enough to keep one assault class for the free ammunition replenishment it gives, but everyone else copied Mitamai and became a technician. Now, we were dying less and less and could make it to extrapolation. I mean exfiltration, you know, the opposite of infiltration. When reaching wave 10, you could evacuate and win the game. Or ignore that mark and make it further and win the game even more. But we couldn't make it. Then, Mitamai gave up guns and bought a melee weapon for once. Melee usually doesn't have too good of a reputation in shooters, and it shouldn't have been strong considering enemy anomalies in this game have absurd range. You detect them, shoot them, and they've already scored a hit on you. However, melee was absurdly strong. It required no ammo, could block hits automatically, enabled the ability to dash and made quick work of most anomalies in mere seconds. There are two melee weapons, the long blade and VT8 blade. The long blade had more speed and stamina, which was required by all of the special abilities, while the VT8 blade had slightly more damage. Both had the same cost. This made the long blade pretty much meta in my eyes until I discovered in the writing of this video that my favorite weapon, the VT8 blade, had a secret ability when pressing X allowing for faster swing speed and faster sprint, which makes it way better. I had preferred the VT8 blade anyways because it looked like Gamble Shroud from a show I enjoyed. Karma copied Mitamai once more by taking the blade but took the long blade instead. At first, we massively enjoyed the instant interaction and gas mask as it rendered us immune to most annoying effects in the game, but due to the massive cost of points of the gas mask, we had to take it off. Mitamai had enjoyed the all-in skill granting 30 more credits per kill, but with the chance of losing half of it all upon getting hit. Mitamai negated this using a sniper rifle, but the skill was rendered unusable with the melee strategy. To acquire the VT8 blade even faster, the strategy became to eliminate anomalies until reaching 75 credits and then to sell both primary and secondary weapons to get 300 credits for the blade. By selling auxiliary equipment as well, you could get to 300 credits by the start of the game, but this way, you were forced to carry less grenades, which isn't optimal. Anyways, our objective had become to reach Wave 20 to obtain a badge granting us one extra skill point. Wave 20 featured a gigantic demonic boss. We had one gigantic counter to it, intense amounts of grenades and overwhelming firepower. We would max out at Wave 40. Soon after, we would have our most memeable night yet. We played Settlers of Catan, but in Discord, since Discord added new activities. We would all terribly lose to Henry. Me and TUC tried to ally to block a second Henry victory, but he would still settle it to a draw. While he technically had more points than Mitamai by one, we had brought the game to a situation where we couldn't get any more points to any players to meet the victory condition. Therefore, Henry would win by the fact he had more points, but in reality did not win due to the game being unable to declare a winner. The memes of holding someone at sauce point and 2 pounds of dust, and by playing Rail Frenzy, we added Dwayne the Train and Saucy Boy, pick up the Johnson. This was later solidified into Hands Up, Dwayne the Train. Saucy Boy, pick up the Johnson. Ray Icecon01 is an interesting figure in Dungeon Crew. He is one of Karma's non-white enemies, is generally seen as a child by the rest of the crew, and is pretty much a meme of incompetence by the virtue of him pulling out the strangest strategies in the history of Hypixel Skyblock. Then, Ray made a mod pack and forced Henry to play it. I eventually got to review it and it was frankly terrible. He only had 30 mods, had installed the entirety of Essential, extremely bloated for a mod pack, just to zoom in. The whole mod pack was spawning in the nether, but he didn't even bother to properly set that up. To put it simply, it was a dumpster fire of a mod pack. As a mod pack creator, I just had to rip it all to shreds. Next, Ray would start another channel, his first one failed. This new channel would be called Revolution Gaming and actually feature other people such as Henry or Fishy. However, nothing much came out of it except irrelevant clips. This led to a conversation between Meruem and Mitamai about how their channels were actually successful. Citing Meru, "Stay at your place, peasant. We are famous." This claim is dubious, but on whose channel are you watching this right now? Not Meru's or Ray's. Sorry, Meru. Mitamai and Meruem had then planned to start a counter to Ray's revolution and start a Hypixel Skyblock channel with the rest of the crew on board. We had an interesting concept and branding planned out until we just didn't speak of it and it died down. Now that I've talked about it, I'm sure the rest of the crew are going to want to start the channel now and are DMing me this instant. We had planned to place Meruem as the main face of the channel, mostly doing narration for our videos, and Mitamai as the editor and manager of the channel. It was planned for the others to record their ends so we could gather everything together and produce those kinds of videos telling the tale of their gaming experience. Mitamai had also planned to create an intro based on the Girls Frontline anime's one, which directly influenced this very video's intro. We would not hear from Ray ever since this event, and even I would only learn what he had up to since that time. He had started a new channel and was making unsuccessful shorts at an industrial scale. Back to LC5. Teacup had built the Bounties office, and in response, Mitamai built a Royal Quest office. The two were also colonizing faraway places, Atlantis for the periphery and Mingréal for the Eternal Kingdom. Both wouldn't really make much progress, with Atlantis being one platform in the ocean and Mingréal a small campsite with an entire jungle island spawn-proof. However, a new challenger would come to disrupt the Trans-Siberian Company's monopoly, the OST, for Ostindi and special transport improvements. The OST would pride itself for its special piston bolts and whatever the hell that is. They also took over one of the TSRC stations illegally and built a deep canal underneath. The OST stations would be criticized for their horrible architecture and color palette. The TSRC would start a new railway line from spawn to their new HQ in the middle of the ocean, which is still under construction to this day. From this HQ, an overseas canal, that is a canal built on top of the ocean, whatever that may be, was built all the way to Mingréal. The TSRC also discovered a new stronghold which would become disputed territory since the OST did not want all of the server's end portals in the hands of the TSRC. Ironically, both sides would start an infrastructure race to the island where the stronghold was, but neither would go all the way down to the stronghold. New players were also planned to join but never really did. One wanted to establish a merchant republic near the TSRC HQ, but as previously said, this never happened. I had managed to somehow find the files for a Lost Team Centuries animation made in 2020. These were individual screenshots as I did stop motion animation back then. It featured Team A Centuries and friends in a loosely TDS-inspired zombie apocalypse. Here it is. I'm not putting the whole animation, so go watch it if you're interested. Tower Battles released its Halloween 2023 update in October. Ben had said he might come back in case of a Tower Battles update, but clearly this wasn't the case. Interestingly, there wasn't an update until over a year after Team Centuries had been dissolved. This event was both disappointing and very hype. On one hand, we finally had an update, but it was all recycled content. It was the old 2020 event map, and the two towers available during the event were the Graveyard, which we already had, and the Hallow Boomer, an older tower that was only available before we started playing. It's a bit sad to see an exclusive tower being available to the public again, but it worked to our advantage. Mitamai, Henry, and Forever would triumph the event using pretty much the same strategy as last time, although a bit tweaked and improved. We should have grinded the event more to get everyone all of the skins, but we didn't. TDS also had a gigantic update mirroring that of the Eclipse one. Ever since Ben left Team Centuries, my policy about TDS had been pretty much to ignore it, even shutting down uploads on my regular channel. I wasn't playing the game anyways. My TDS party slowly left me. First, Natnik had left TDS, then Noob_Ruler, Ender Darks, and now Ben. TDS was one of the only games I had 100% completed ever since the start. I was a veteran from the first days of TDS, yet I would completely give up on triumphing over any new event. I did buy the Game Pass for every event tower in case I ever had to play TDS again, though. The game also grew largely worse in my eyes ever since the hardcore update. It lost its soul, something Tower Battles ironically kept in their lack of updates. Death Must Die is one hell of a fun game. Mitamai had tried to get Henry to play, but he declined yet again. Teacup would join, though. Death Must Die is a roguelite survival RPG where the goal is to make it as far as possible and try not to die. The party is sent to kill death with the support of the gods, granting them buffs and special abilities. You can encounter shrines, bosses, and special weapons and equipment, which enhances the game experience. Achievements also give a special buff to the player. After getting an achievement for a specific character, players can select an achievement to equip, giving them a significant boost. I like Scatty and Maris. Maris is stupidly meta, but I prefer her summoner abilities, as you can see on screen. Scatty is a ridiculous one. She's pretty much like Avrin, the first character who's a knight, but with less armor and more speed. Or I thought she had more speed, but in actuality she has the same speed. Weird. She does have an achievement sign giving her more speed though, which is a bit ridiculous to use. She also has an insane regeneration sign which lets me beat the game for the first time. People keep saying her sign to constantly level up some skills is overpowered, but I haven't found it as ridiculous as the previous two. Mitamai and Teacup had a small informal competition over who would be able to get the most achievements quickly. Mitamai wins. The quest for the hardest achievement, Ghost Matter, requires to not take any damage during a run. To succeed, Mitamai took Maris, as she is a ranged character and not a melee character, chose Lady Justice's buffs for her divine shield, put on the most evasive equipment he had, and won after a few attempts. We also entered the modding scene of this game, which was frankly non-existent. Kind of. Not really modding, but Teacup made a save editor tool which was used and praised by members of the Death Must Die Wiki's Discord members. Mitamai somewhat contributed and named the tool, calling it Shrike. Karma wondered when the server's funeral would be. It was 1.5 years ago, YouTube. Finally, this takes us to December of 2023. The only major event that happened was Mitamai and Henry playing Mitamai's Mindustry mod to play test it and see what to improve. It was the Rusted Warfare campaign but under the form of a mod, along with a separate modded progression. There are also plans to play Lethal Company, an extremely popular multiplayer horror game, and very recently Demise of Eden, a relatively new game by Arch Seamus yet again. Well, this is it. After 2 years of Team Centuries no longer existing, its members are still cooperating together and having fun, yet at a much more reduced capacity. I omit plenty of events that either happened mostly solo or that I wasn't even aware of. I'm sure Henry and Forever had many more stories to tell from these past years, but I wasn't there. Actually, I'm not sure if they had stories to tell, or the capacity to tell that story. This was the legacy of Team Centuries. Just looking at a timeline, and comparing it to the previous one, you would think this is just one of the periods where TUC has much more downtime. It has really felt like Team Centuries had dissolved. Our entire online lifestyles have entirely changed because of it. But it is not the end. TUC did not go off with a bang, but rather, it never completely died off. This is the end for this year. Might am I off?
The sparks in my heart burn tall past the bound, going to and around. I heard what howling was, the proud of iron and blood. Thy dreams they won, betrayed in wait for the world more than right and shade. Through love and hate, with joy and pain, we never cease.